The engineer lies splayed out on the ground, his body trembling violently. Iger shoves a bottle up his nose and squeezes. The engineer shudders violently, then the trembling begins to subside. She glances at you. An Aerosol BZD to help treat the seizures. Bannock was kind enough to include it in his goodie bag. It won't last long, but it should give Yuli here enough muscular control to answer a few questions. The engineer's voice comes out in a trembling stutter. Fuck you, troll. See? He's talking already. The engineer's eyes burn with hate. Beads of sweat dot his brow as he struggles to control the tremors that wreck his body. Wait, isn't he a troll? Or is he an orc? I don't know. He takes a deep breath, holds it, and releases it slowly. The trembling begins to subside. I'm sorry we had to use that thing on you. Must be terrible having the shakes like that. It is. Is that what you wanted to hear? Slowly the orc's eyes shift from Iger to you. I know the troll, bitch. We have history. But you are a stranger to me. Are you sure that you have a stomach for this, stranger? Not many do. I have the stomach for all sorts of things you can't even imagine, Yuli. The Shadowrunner thinks he can frighten me. His speech sounds stronger than now. The stutter that marred his speech has almost completely faded away. How adorable. Oh, Yuli, you should be frightened. She slaps him across the face, splitting his lip down the middle. The impact sounds like a gunshot. You're in serious trouble, my friend. Iger leans in towards the engineer. He recoils, grinding the back of his head against the grease-stained Duraplast tiles. You're helpless, a fucking cripple. Her voice comes out in a snarl. If you answer our questions, things will go easier for you. So tell us, whose payroll are you on? She grabs a fistful of the orc's hair and lifts his head. Her face is inches from his. Tell us who sent you to Shotton Nest. There's a long pause. Eventually, the engineer looks away. Alright. You want to know so badly? I'll tell you. Tamanus sent me here. They want to use Shotton Nest as a base of operations in Berlin. My point of contact is a ghoul named Beetle. He leans forward and locks eyes with Iger. There, you got your intel. Now set me free or kill me. Yuli. Iger leans back, shaking her head. You wouldn't roll over an employer this easily. Your rep tells me that much. He raises an eyebrow in a look of mock astonishment. No? No. Iger's right. You're jerking us around. You wanted a name? I gave you a name. Want more? I can give you those too. I can name you 100 clients who'd love a piece of Shotton Nest. How do you intend to determine who really sent me? Let us worry about that. Oh, I intend to. He wrestles the corner of his mouth up into a smirk. I've got no worries. I already know what my future holds. Maybe you try to reason with me, and that fails. Maybe you try coercion. That'll get you nowhere too. You try beating on me and I'll start giving names. More names than you know what to do with. Torture me or don't. It'll all end the same way. I'll be dead, you'll know nothing for certain, and my clients will move on ahead of schedule. If you're already dead, why care about being a snitch? He snorts. I won't give your she-troll the satisfaction. She wants it, and that's why she won't get it. Iger's hands bunch into fists. She's still smiling, but you can feel the heat of hatred behind her eyes. If you don't start telling me what I want to hear in the next 30 seconds, this is gonna get messy. I know that look, Yuli. I'd start talking if I were... The engineer cuts you off. A perverse smile is spread across his face. You know, Iger. He takes his time pronouncing the name, savors it. I'd like to tell you a story. We share so much history, you and I. Iger says nothing, but her eyes narrow. The engineer continues, his grin broadening. This is a funny story. It's a story about your time in the KSK, a story about futility. I can tell you all about the many lives you've touched, and how the syndicates touched them again afterward. Would you like that? There's a long pause. Eventually, Iger turns to face you. Analog, do me a favor. Sweep the building for intel. Anything we might have missed on the way in. Yeah, I'm on it. Take a good care of our friend here. Yeah, don't worry. I will. Try not to kill him. Yet. The broken body of a human man lies on the floor. His face is a mess of fresh cuts and congealing blood, and his head is oddly deformed. Despite his words, his mouth is twisted into a macabre smile. Inspect the body. Judging by the shape of the ganger's head, you'd guess that his skull had been fractured in at least 3 places. The center of his forehead is particularly gruesome. It looks soft, as though the skin were stretched like a tent between shards of broken bone. Looking up, you can see a great smear of gore on the door of the room that you found him in. The implications are clear. This man bashed his own head in trying to get out, and he did it with a smile on his face. His hands are barely broken too. You've seen these sorts of injuries after bare-knuckle fistfights, but never anything this severe. This man punched something hard and went on punching until his hands were reduced to useless slabs of meat. Oh, step away. Barrels. What could be in these? Chemical storage barrels. A light jostle shows that they're completely empty. Okay. Courier drone. It looks melted. The cargo container is empty. Oh, there's a second one. This generic courier drone has been snapped together out of prefab parts from a dozen different manufacturers. It's a cheap utilitarian thing, remarkable only in that it is so incredibly plain. A half-bright teenager could cobble something like this together in an afternoon. The drone sits in a charging cradle, its turbofan unpowered. A cheerful green light blinks on its front panel to remind you that it's still active. You can see the silhouette of something under the flimsy plastic dome of the drone's cargo compartment. Whatever this thing was here to deliver, it's still carrying it. Pop the lid. You depress the catch on the container's plastic lid. Rather than swinging open, the lid slides back to reveal a touchpad. Looks as though this thing is password locked. Examine it more closely. Taking a closer look, you notice something strange. There's a set of electrical contact plates lining the lip of the drone's cargo compartment. It's a fair bet this thing is outfitted with an anti-tampering system of some kind. Let's not smash it. Okay. Step away. This is a dead end. Forklift. A ledger. Ledgers are useful. A small ledger lying on the crate. This cover is cheap leatherette, and the paper is tissue-thin newsprint. Leaf through them. Pages are filled to overflowing with a handwritten text. You don't recognize the language, but judging by the accent marks, you'd guess it's a Scandinavian tongue. While you can't read it, the arrangement of the text tells you that the ledger is primarily used as an address book. Pocket the book. And the forklift. It's flat. Hasn't been used in years. Tell us about the ledger. Most of the engineer's chest is sheeted with blood. Most of it seems to be streaming from his nose, which has been crushed into a wad of bloody meat. Iger turns to face you. Her bunched fists are dripping red. Find anything? She speaks to you through clenched teeth. Her voice sounds strange and her cheeks are flushed. I thought you said you weren't going to resort to torture. This isn't torture, it's justice. If you knew half of this what this bastard has done, if you'd heard the things he just told me, you'd do the same. Just don't get carried away, we need him. Just tell me what you found. Yes, please, enlighten us. Tell me about the journal. Iger leaves the journal, quickly flipping the soy-capped stained pages. Norwegian, maybe. I'm thinking this was written in Bakmal. She frowns. I can't read it, but it looks like a shipping manifest. Yeah, something like that. There's a lot of addresses in there. She rifles through the pages, flipping the cheap paper with her thumbnail. Looks like addresses all the way through. Some are annotated, but I can't see any names. 2/3 of the way through the book, she stops short. Find something? Wordlessly, she turns through the journal around. At the top of the page, written in a different hand, is a single word. It's written in English, but you can't understand it all the same. Wednesday. She nods. Yeah, not particularly helpful without a full date, but I guess it's something. Of course, Wednesday might not refer to a day of the week at all. It could be a code for something. Perhaps a drone. Taken out of context like this, it's impossible to say. What do you mean? So what do you make of it? This should be good. Iger ignores them. Her gaze remains fixed on the book. It might be nothing, or it could mean that he's back in bed with the Lobachevsky syndicate. The engineer holds his silence. Say nothing. Did you find anything else? We need to be sure about this before moving forward. Tell her about the body. Interesting, but not unusual in these parts. There are all kinds of drugs that could make a person act that way, and most of them aren't hard to get in a place like Shot and Nest. If have you found anything else, I'll keep searching. Come on. There you go. You can do it. Enter a password. Wednesday. Did I spell that right? Yes. The plastic lid of the cargo container pops open with a click. Inside you find what appears to be a homemade SimSense chip. It sits securely in a custom-made plastic bracket. Take the chip. You pop the chip out of the bracket and pocket it. A few seconds later, an angry hissing sound comes from somewhere deep within the drone. Step back. Whoa! As you step away from the drone, the hissing sound grows into a roar. Bright white sparks spit across from the drone's melting chassis and streak across the room. You've seen this kind of reaction before. Thermite. Whoever built the drone must have wired it with a self-destruct device. Within seconds, all that's left of the drone is a molten wreck on the charging cradle. Foul-smelling smoke pours from the remains. You steal another glance at the chip that you recovered and turn away. This could be the key to everything. Found a chip. Pair of courier drones near the room. No markings. They look custom built. One of them had been slagged, but the other had this chip in its storage compartment. The engineer's eyes widen slightly. He turns his head and coughs rack his body. Interesting. This means something to you, Yuli? Iger takes the chip from you and holds it up to the light. No identifying markings. I haven't seen enough BTLs in my time to know when I see it, but this is different. It's been modified somehow. Go ahead and slide it, bitch. It'll take you on the ride of your life. Iger raises an eyebrow. Smack him for me, will you? I'm busy. Okay. Your fist connects with the ruined meat of the engineer's nose. He coughs, chokes on his own blood, and then spits a wad of it onto your chest. You don't know what you're holding, Slag. He spits the words out like venom. His eyes are locked onto the chip in Iger's hand. Slowly he licks his lips. You don't deserve to touch that chip. I thought this guy was a professional. He is. I know his rep. I know he's too careful to get himself addicted to the Sims. She glances at the engineer. His eyes are locked onto the chip. So if these things have him hooked this badly, then it must be even more addictive than standard BTLs. That's a frightening thought. You're telling me the last thing that we need is more sim junkies on our streets. She turns to face the engineer. You got anything to add to that, Yuli? You have no idea how wrong you are about all this. He struggles to rise on the floor, but his muscles refuse to cooperate. Finally, he gives up with a scowl. If I could move my arms, I'd take that chip from you and show you what it does. I'm sure you would. She glances over her shoulder at you. Good find, Analog. We struck a nerve. Any other thoughts? Yeah, actually, I think I might know where the other chip went. Remember that body I found in the other room? Yeah, good thought. Go check it out, but be quick. I don't know how long it'll be before we have company here. I'm on it. Yeah, there we go. The ruined body lies crumpled on the floor. Its fractured skull glistens wetly in the light. Reach on in there. Peeling back a patch of matted hair, you find something that a casual viewer might have missed. The mat had a chip jack. It's a cheap model, sufficient for loading SimSense chips and BTLs, but little else. It doesn't take much effort for you to pry it open. Inside the chip jack, you find a glob of plastic. It looks as though whatever this guy was running melted down sometime after he slotted it. A chip jack like this couldn't generate enough heat to destroy SimSense chip. The only logical conclusion is that the chip itself was wired to melt down after use. Take the chip and leave. Hey, I found another thing. The engineer's eyes remain locked on the chip. His face has gone pallid white and his shirt is drenched with sweat. His eyes bulge and his breathing is heavy. Iger glances up from your manic captive and looks you in the eyes. Find what you were looking for? Yeah, I pried his chip jack open and found a blob of melted plastic inside. It was still warm to the touch. Iger examines the remnants of the chip in your fingers. I've heard of things like this before. Single-use sims designed to self-destruct after they've slotted. Keeps the customers from using the same BTL over and over again. I'd say you found our missing chip. This isn't a BTL. BTLs don't make you cave your own skull in. The engineer lets out a chuckle. It's a hoarse, barking sound. You don't know a damn thing. Why don't you educate us? A chip doesn't drive you insane. It opens your eyes. His voice grows in volume, becomes ragged. Slot one and you become a god. Iger stares at him, her expression flat. The engineer sneers. I too was a skeptic. Then the wolf caught me and the raven opened my eyes, and now at last I can see. Suddenly he lurches forward. Every muscle in his body goes tight and the cords stand out on his neck. Give me the chip. It was promised to me. I need it. Tell us who you're working for and it's all yours. The engineer spits out a mouthful of blood. It hits the tile floor with a sickening splat. He grinds his teeth and snarls out a single word. Winter night. There's a moment of silence. Finally, Iger speaks. Never heard of them. Of course you haven't, bitch. If you had, you'd already be dead. They don't leave loose ends. His body begins to tremble. It looks like the drugs are wearing off. They have money, she-troll. Money and influence enough to put the syndicates to shame. Even if I can't say how much, but I do know that what I've seen and is just the tip of the spear. Alright, let's say you're telling the truth and some sort of secret society is behind this. What do they want with Shot and Nest? They don't tell me these things. All I know is that they want us to store things here. Crates, boxes, shipped in from all over. No cargo inspections and no traces back to them. What are they shipping in? Weapons, drugs, more of these BTLs? He eyes her incredulously. You think that I asked him? It's not my place to know. All that I know is what was promised to me. Give me the chip. His voice comes out in a shivering screech. You promised! He promised you the chip. Iger smiles at the engineer. Slowly she pulls a knife from her belt. Its serrated edge glints in the light. I, on the other hand, didn't offer you a goddamn thing. She's got you there. Iger leans in to look at the engineer in the eye. She grins. Goodbye, Yuli. She plunges her blade into the engineer's throat. The orc lets out a startled gurgling sound, thrashes and dies. Iger wipes her hands clean and looks up, an expression of grim satisfaction on her face. Well, that takes care of that. Thanks for the assist, fearless leader. Anytime. Ready to head back to the Kreitz Bazaar? We need to let the F-State know about this. Hang on a second. We should search the body first. Who knows? Maybe he has some additional evidence on him. Or in him. She taps a finger against his forehead. Could be that he has hardware storage. We won't know until we go digging. Alright, let's do it. Time passes. The job is long and unpleasant, but eventually you find something. A hidden storage compartment in one of the engineer's cyber arms. Deactivated as the cyberware is, it takes some prying to get it open, but Iger leans in and puts some muscle into it. With a metallic snapping sound, the compartment yawns open. Iger reaches in and pulls out a cylindrical object about the size of a beer can. She inspects it and a smile creeps across her face. Does that mean something to you? Yeah, actually, it's a pulse grenade. Last I heard, the Russian military were developing them as a crowd dispersal device, but that was years ago. Looks like Yuli kept it as a memento in the time of the Spetsnaz. She examines the grenade with a critical eye. Looks like typical Russian engineering, clunky but functional. If I took this thing apart, I bet I could figure out how they made it. Anything else in there? She dips her head into the secret compartment one more time. No, not that I can. Without warning, the engineer's cyber arms begin to twitch. His body bucks convulsively while his dead eyes stare straight ahead. Edgar snatches her hand back and steps backward. What the hell? The engineer's body surges forward, a violent convulsive motion. His eyes bulge out of his skull, then his chest evaporates in a spray of light. As you watch, the chemical fire that rages from the engineer's body blackens his flesh and spits sparks across the room. It's the same reaction that you saw when the drone went up, a thermite reaction. His employers, Winter Night, they must have implanted that thing in him. Yeah, must have. I'm willing to bet that if we hadn't used the cyberware deactivator on him, he'd have gone up before he had the chance to spill any names. If you were looking for further proof, I think this was it. Yeah, looks that way. Let's go. People need to know about this. Okay. Let's go. So I like how this was just like a tiny side quest that it gives you a scope of just how like there's this grand scheme, but you're kind of on the fringe of it, and you aren't really gonna solve it. You're just gonna find out about it and let somebody else solve it for you. Maybe.